Why are prescription charge costs in England going up to £7.20 when the British Medical Association has called for them to be abolished? Wales get free prescriptions, Northern Ireland get free prescriptions, Scotland only pay £3 but will soon have the charges phased out. Also in these other places it's England who pays more for people to park at hospitals.
Okay, so prescription charges, why are they so expensive in England when they aren't charged in Wales and Ireland, and the question about parking, issues around health and the health service.
Yeah, it sounds a lot, £7.20, I agree. Obviously there are concessions with that, so not everybody pays £7.20. I think the broader question is about devolution. Yes, different devolved assemblies like Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland have different ways of doing things. And that is actually, all the parties here will talk about localism and how important it is for local people to make decisions about what happens to them. Inevitably, that means you get different offerings in different places, and it does lead to postcode lottery as well, actually. And what you're referring to with the deals, for example, is the Barnett formula. And actually, I have to say that although Scotland benefits from that, we in the north of England also benefit from that, because there's deprivation indices in that as well, which means that Bradford has one of the best settlements in the country, actually, when it comes to getting a settlement from the central government. We might not use that on prescription charges, but we do actually get a good deal in terms of money that's going into our PCT, our NHS trust, and that does help us with all sorts of things. So we in the north of England are beneficiaries of the same formula, although you won't see it as demonstrably as with the prescription charges. So I share your pain, so I'm one of those people who pays for it, but at the same time, I'm afraid that's the sort of a consequence of devolution.
John Harris?
Yeah, ultimately this is about money. It's about the best choice for use of money. We're not promising to get rid of the prescription charges. I wish I could promise that, but they do bring a lot of money in. And in relation to the way the health service is run, we recognise that there will be a lot of pressures in the health service in the future. So what we will do is reduce the administration. I think the administration has increased pretty dramatically by a third in the last 10 years. We'd like to take it back to that level 10 years ago, so we actually reduce the admin costs of the health service. We also feel that local people should have rather more choice in the way the health service is run locally. So we would elect, effectively, health boards, and those health boards would replace the primary care trusts, and they would make sure that local people's wishes were put into action. I think that's very important. In relation to what you've said about the parking charges, I tend to agree with you that it can be seen as a tax on the sick. I think that's unfortunate. But that's possible because the trust actually is self-governing in that respect. So if people get involved and put enough pressure on the trust and say we don't want those charges, that may well change. So I think you've got to think of yourself as being empowered with the pilot and other government to be more involved and have your say. I think that's very important. We'd also like to try and improve the efficiency of the health service by asking the nursing staff and all the staff involved, doctors and so on, in this unit, to actually effectively take charge of the budget of that unit. And I think often the truth is when people are given the responsibility for something, they will take the responsibility on willingly and they will do better than they will do if they manage it externally. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Phil Davis.
Yeah, sure, it is a lot of money for a prescription, and Susan's right, there are lots of people who get a concession. However, we perhaps ought to think about a bit more those people who are always just above the line, people who have always done the best, worked hard and saved hard, and find themselves being sort of penalised for that and find themselves above the threshold. So I sympathise greatly. But I think John's right. You know, in an ideal world, of course, we'd all like to be able to give people free prescriptions and free parking at hospitals. But I come back to the situation that we're in, which is that the government's borrowing £500 million every day. And with the best will in the world, there just isn't the money at the moment to do those kinds of things. But I think the point you make, the comparisons with Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland are very telling. And it's all very well they're making their choices. I'm all for that. That's absolutely fine. However, they're often making their choices with the money from England. And it's a bit sickening, really, when you find that everything's free in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and that's being paid for by English taxpayers who are having to pay exorbitant charges themselves. So I think there is a gross unfairness in the Barnett formula that absolutely needs to be addressed. And whilst we're on a similar vein, if we win the election, we will stop Scottish MPs voting on things that only apply to England, which is also grossly unfair as well.